Just grab my coffee. Welcome to Mark Bajerski YouTube channel, a channel where we talk about many different crystals. We talk about how to heal ourselves, self-healing, learning different methods of healing, learning all about oils, incense, and also crystals. One of the most profound crystal that I've worked with over the 20 odd years, 23, 24 years, is Moldavite. Moldavite is something that I have a passion for. It's controversial, it's dynamic, it sometimes can be extremely stressful, but it's a topic of conversation that has fascinated me on so many levels. I've met people who are shamans who believe in this stone to be something very, very powerful, and I've met people who have never got a thing from it. So the diversity, the ends of the spectrum of this crystal is fascinating. It's the only crystal that actually has people all over the place. Today we'll talk about the Moldavite flush. It's a word that is used that kind of relates to the fact that when you hold it, something happens on certain levels, and I'd like to discuss that because it's been something that I've seen in hundreds of my clients, and that phenomena exists. Now, we are all unique, all of us. So from the moment we're born right till this moment that you're watching this video, everything that you've been through, nobody can relate to. Nobody can say, oh yeah, that's why you're like that. They can't really say, because they need to know 100% what you've been through to become like you are. So everybody is different. Everybody is different. That is mind, body, and spirit. So therefore, the flush is an interesting concept because it's only part of the process of healing or detoxifying, whatever you want to call it, of the Moldavite experience, which is fascinating. So let's just focus on that, okay? We can talk about the other experiences that people go through, which is a massive pattern, which is the crying and so on, the anger. But let's talk about the flush. I think one of my first clients, looking back, was a lady who went through extreme suffering. She was bipolar. She was never happy with her life. She was always getting ready for negative patterns to come forward. She would be high, but then when I caught her on the high, when I really tapped into her, she wasn't really on a high. It was something else. So I decided to do a Moldavite healing session on her to see if it would help with a bipolar. I don't believe in that word. I think it's utter nonsense. But I guess for now, I have to use that word so people can understand. So what happened was I cleansed her first of all with sage. She travelled from the UK. She's very famous. She travelled from the UK, and basically I sat her down and went around her body with sage. That was the first thing. That was to cleanse and clear any of the negative residue that was inside, dirty energy we call it. So I cleared that away, and then I proceeded to lie down on the healing bed. I laid a purple cover over her and got her comfortable. She was very comfortable. She struggled with sleep. She struggled with her eyes. She struggled with a monkey mind kind of thing, right? But it was fine. This time I was only going to use Moldavite. I took a piece of Moldavite, which I've got a few pieces here, probably looked like this piece here. So it was just a kind of like a round piece of nugget, but just so that I could sit it on her third eye. So I placed the beautiful Moldavite on her third eye, and I put my left hand over the nugget and just slightly above, and my other hand on her heart. Within 15 minutes, the repetitive eye movement, which is a flickering of the eye and the movement of the eye, calmed down. I then took the Moldavite and rested it on the chest, took my other hand away from the third eye and placed it at the back of the head, and then placed that hand over the chest where the Moldavite was. Within about 15 minutes, the whole body had calmed down, and in the process of those 15 minutes, I noticed something. She was sweating, and her face had gone almost red. And I could see at that moment that the energy of flushing, Moldavite flush, because that's what it is flushing out and clearing that what is suppressed, stuck inside the mind and the heart area. Around about half an hour went by. She was going into a deeper motion and the breathing started. It was a very heavy breathing, and it was a blowout of a breathing. This is quite common, but not so common. And it's a release. So she started to blow very hard. She was now in a sleep, but she was naturally blowing. She was getting more and more red, and she was sweating more and more. I remember turning and getting one of my paper towels and just gently easing her forehead where she woke up slightly. I continued the work because I didn't want her to get, I didn't want it to sweat to go into her eyes and sting her eyes. So I made sure I kept that clean. This was going to be a long healing session, but it was vital for my understanding as a healer with Moldavite. What was the process with this client? She went back into a sleep again and started breathing very heavy again. It was a blowout of a breath. So something was happening, and it was a cleansing. I noticed her chest was hitting my palm. So every few seconds her chest would hit my palm because my palm was slightly over. So she was breathing in and out and her chest was coming out. So I was here, her breasts are here, and I was round about here. And it was kind of touching me. So I had to open my eyes, so I was being very careful where my hand was going so it wouldn't touch the breast. That's very important as a healer. Stay well away if you're a male from there. But if you're doing energy healing, just slightly lift your hand a bit higher, and then there's no problem at all. Keep your eyes open as well. Always good to keep a check. So as this healing process was taking place, I could feel from my right hand the issues that were releasing from the back of her head. So the Moldavite had started a process of awakening past trauma, trapped trauma which was definitely in the heart or the chest, and now the release was taking place. Now I realized that there is a pattern of, first of all, the body showing the stress from within by way of sweating, by way of detoxing, by way of the change of colour of skin, and the movement of the body, whether it's the eyes going into rapid state or the eyelids. You can see the eyes moving when the eyes are closed. When the eyelids are closed, you can see the rapid movement. And this again has a lot to do with trapped emotion or trauma in the brain that we've been through as children. So I could see some heavy work being done, really profound work. So why break something that's not broken? I stayed exactly where I was for about an hour and 35-40 minutes. Within the breathing out, there were no words said. There was just breathing out of this exhale of negative energy. The chest moving up and down became less and less aggressive, so it was clearing out what it needed to clear out. The back of the head, my tingling was slowly dissipating, and the tingling was going. The pins and needles were going. The rapid eye movement had virtually stopped, and then she went into a deep silence. So from the Moldavite flush came an inner stillness, an inner peace. When she woke up, she started to cry, and she got up. She said, "I've never felt like this before in my whole life." And I smiled and I thought, well done, Moldavite. Till this day, this very famous lady wears a piece of Moldavite, and she said it changed her life. What I noticed about that process is that with all the people that came to me with similar circumstances, which were, let's say, businessmen who couldn't stop, and they were basically running on cocaine and Coca-Cola and Red Bull and needing to become a millionaire yesterday, to be able to lie them clients down and do that same healing process, I've got to say that it's one of the most profound crystals to help people who are at a point of their life that they're going to burn out, break down. And it really does help achieve cleansing beyond any crystal that I've ever worked with. And thus, when I place a crystal around somebody who has no concept of healing or wanting to understand energy because it's woo-woo, crazy, I often found that the amount of people who I gifted Moldavite to, which is in its thousands, that the majority of those people who had no concept of spirituality at all, it was just living, eating, breathing and working, always came back to me and said something that, whether it was positive or negative, they would always say something. So like any other crystal wouldn't get that kind of reaction, but Moldavite would. And it was always, I noticed this in my third year of working. With Moldavite, I came to a conclusion that if every person wore Moldavite, the world would change. And people say, what are you talking about? I say, well, what I noticed that when I gifted or people bought a piece of Moldavite, whether they were totally blinded to the fact that there is another world out there, there is another understanding of themselves inside, which is their internal spirit of who they are. If they wear Moldavite, if they put a piece of Moldavite on, it triggers something that helps them on the path of enlightenment. And that's why I always say that. You could change the world in a day if everybody wore a piece of Moldavite, because it would trigger something, it would release something for them to see that there's more to life than just eating, drinking, sleeping and working. So Moldavite flush to me is probably one of the most profound moments when wearing Moldavite, because it's doing something that is so healing. But in most people's eyes, the fear of not knowing what it is and that they're not in control of their emotion or their cleansing and detoxification at that moment, that they automatically result in, like you would if you go to Google and type in, I've got a stomach pain, to the right, it tells you that you're going to die of cancer. And I think we've been programmed to this worst case scenario. And I think that's 99% of humanity. We've been programmed to think we're going to die. Well, we are going to die. Just when? Yeah. So, there's something wrong. It's going to end wrong. It's going to be the worst case scenario all the time. So, Moldavite has a bad press. It has a really bad press. It's like, imagine coming to this earth and you're a healer, but you heal somebody and they're in pain thereafter. And then a few weeks later or months, they feel a lot better. But in that initial stages of wearing Moldavite, it gets a bad press. It gets a really bad press. I have never seen a piece of Moldavite cause harm, but I've seen many pieces of Moldavite cause a cleansing and clearing. And that ultimately long term reveals that your life becomes generally more positive, more healthier and more happier. So you may ask what happened to that client who came to me with the first time I've seen this reaction within a client is so profound. She still manages the issue that she has. But if you ask her, she would say that before she came for that healing session, she was about 98% ready to take her life. Now she manages her life. It's far more easier. And if you asked her between 1 and 100 how she feels now and how to manage her thoughts and feelings, she would probably say about 30%. So nobody said Moldavite is the answer to anything, but it is something that does help. Nobody said that a piece of crystal is that what will cure you, just like nobody ever said that a healer will heal you. But what has been missed and what is misinterpreted is that when a healer or a crystal is within or upon us, not within us, but upon us, they are there as somebody who walks along your path, holding your hand. So every time something comes up, we're there to help you through it. Ultimately, the healer, the most powerful healer, the most powerful crystal is you. And I've always said that. I have never put a crystal before my own power. But sometimes it's nice to have a helping hand. It's sometimes really nice to have a crystal that we can just hold on to. And sometimes we can feel the energy within that crystal, that vibration. I call it a wave that is constantly giving us the healing or the detox that needs to be cleansed and cleared from us. So it creates an energy that then triggers your own healing process. So Moldavite's always been amazing. I could talk about different experiences with Moldavite, but I'll stick with the flush. The flush to me is a cleansing of the chest. So we find that in the flush energy, you find it hard to breathe sometimes. That's because you're trying to clear away the suffering. So I don't know if you've ever started crying or you've ever felt so much pain or grief. It affects the chest and that feeling, because whatever's happening at that given moment, you're being affected in your chest by circumstance or experience. So it's hard to get that out. Moldavite, once placed on you or around you, starts to release that suffering and that pain. But from the moment you were born, depending on what trauma you went through, because we can be filled with trauma at the moment we're born. If we're not gently placed onto our mother's chest, to our breast, or we're grabbed and we're wiped and we've cleaned all of this muck and yuck off, that's trauma. That shouldn't happen. That's not natural. And that's evasive, and that causes trauma to the child instantly. And it also causes a very, very phenomenal and I can't explain this enough, but a mother and child should not be interfered with blankets and cloths and towels. The mother should instantly get the child in their hands, and whatever is around that child, whatever that substance, that miracle substance that the baby came from, should be connected to the mother so that they breathe in this energy, this miracle. Now I know it's not blood, it's not placenta, it's a miracle, and you hold together and the mother and child bond instantly. If you grab that child out and start whacking it, boom, boom, to wake it up and wipe it all down, you're causing trauma. That's just one thing. Before we even start our life, we haven't got right. So when we are clearing trauma from a baby onwards, every body is completely different. And thus I hope I've explained Moldavite flush. Physically, this is what we're talking about. And I have noticed that physically, the Moldavite flush is that. On a side note, spiritually speaking, I am not 100% sure if that causes a spiritual awakening in that person. But I do 100% believe that it causes a physical something of the trauma that is trapped in us, which I believe is a physical thing, not an emotional thing. I think trauma is physical because why is it that we end up with illness if it's only just a thing, an emotion? No, it eats away. It's a thing which is toxic, and I believe I see with my eyes trauma that I relate to as a thick grey matter around certain parts of the body that vibrates a completely different way. That's why I can cure people with head. Oh, I can't even say that, can I? People help to heal themselves much better, really, when they come to me, or when they came to me with severe headaches. Not always, but a lot of the times. So I've had school teachers, scientists, doctors come to me with severe headaches, and I gave them a healing session, and they said, okay, my severe headache is gone. It's now down to a headache, and I can manage it very easy. So that was the worst case scenario. The best case scenario, it's one session, it was gone. Why is that? Why is that? You can't say, can you? Nobody can say. But I can tell you what I saw. I saw a grey matter, and I could look at you and say to you, you've got an issue at the right part of your head, and they'll go, oh my God, that's exactly where my headache is. And I'll say, that's because I can see the energy, and that thing that we just call a headache isn't a thing. It's to do with trapped trauma. It's to do with thought and feeling that causes issue to the brain. And if you can clear that away, then it's no more. I had every doctor that I went to see, specialists, that said, Mark, you've got severe irritable bowel syndrome. It can't be cured. That's what I was told. Okay? I was told this, and I believed it. I cured myself, I can say that, of irritable bowel syndrome. I no longer have it at all. I can eat anything I want, no problem at all. Even when I get stressed, it doesn't affect me. So I cured myself of it. Why is that? Because it's an energy. Well, I've got cancer, I'm going to die. Well, if that's what you think, you will, because your thoughts create a thing that gets even worse and worse and worse, but you can clear. And I have had proof after proof after proof from many people, whether they were nurses, come to me and they showed me their scan. I did the healing session, so the tumour that they had within 3 months had gone practically, so they didn't need an operation. And how is that? Nobody knows. But you can't say that. I can't say that. Can't say that because what I'm saying is going to shake the whole foundations of the industry that we're in, that is cut, laser, burn. So Moldavite, I'll show you here, is part of my life. Here's just a few pieces. These are what I've just been working on now. I work on them every day. This is Moldavite Oil, which is something that I'm extremely proud of. I think it's one of the best Moldavite oils in the world. Why do I think that? Because I have worked with oils for 2 decades, and the oil that was the only oil that I believed would work with Moldavite in the way that I needed it to work was Palo Santo. So I had to get from the sacred tree and from real healers in Peru. And it takes forever to get, but what I was just going to show you a bottle. But to get pure Palo Santo in its real raw form, organic, untouched, all by Mother Earth, of the bits and pieces that are on the floor, what get extracted. And plus the Moldavite, what is within this bottle, which I've worked with for over probably 3 weeks. So each piece of Moldavite that's in this bottle, I've worked on. So I might get 7 or 14 pieces and work on them over a few weeks until they're ready. And then when they're ready, I put a piece in here. I work with the bottle for a while, and then they're ready. People love it. People work with it. And it's got a great energy of Moldavite, and Palo Santo works perfectly. And some of the other Moldavites that I work with, this one's from Maliclum. It's a very special piece, very beautiful. After I finished working with that, I sent it to Bali, and then Bali mount them for me beautifully with a little signature of MB on. And then I have my little pieces, little tiny pieces. Some of them are all natural, like this. Some I sometimes have cut and then mount, and then when I've cut them, the powder then gets put into my Moldavite sticks. So yeah, these are becoming probably one of the best sellers now. This is one of my favorites right now. In fact, I've got one on my neck. I love working with it. So it's a beautiful piece of Moldavite mounted with the most gorgeous Brazilian quartz, and they work so well. Very powerful. This is a particularly beautiful Moldavite. I love the transparency of this one. That's from Maliplum too. And last but not least, now we're talking about Moldavite, here is the creme de la creme. So this is a very rare piece of Bajerski, and look at the shape. It's in the shape of a pyramid. Now this is one of the most rare Moldavites in the world. They call it a hedgehog, and this hedgehog just happens to be in a raffle. And at the end of the month, if you go and buy any crystal off markbajerski.com, your name will be placed into a raffle, and you might be the lucky owner of this when I choose your name out, hopefully. Moldavite, yeah, is part of my life now, I guess. So when I do hear people say negative things, I just would love to sit them down and say, well, hang on, let's talk about it. Let's see where you are in life. And I have done with many people. And to change the thought process doesn't take that long, actually. And they realize, actually, this is a good thing. So from the darkness comes light. And I believe Moldavite is that crystal to do that. I am currently writing a book, and I have been doing for the past 4 years, maybe 5. And it's called The Power of Moldavite. And when it comes out, I think that's going to make a massive impact in the world, in the sense of, okay, I'll give it a try. Whereas before I was too frightened, or I've got a piece of Moldavite and I didn't want to touch it, but now I think I'm going to work with it. I guess I'll leave you on one note. If you're watching this now, then that means you're ready for Moldavite. Because out of the thousands, if not millions of videos, you chose to see this. So maybe, just maybe, your time for Moldavite is here. Just one thing. When choosing Moldavite, it is vital that you find somebody who is 100% a Moldavite dealer, which means that they buy directly from the Czech Republic. Okay? Epsa, eBay, Amazon. The likelihood of you buying a fake is probably up to its 90%. So be very careful where you buy them from. I personally go myself to the Czech Republic and buy directly from the dealer next to the digger or from the sand mine. So I am very blessed. But even now it's become very challenging and difficult. It's slowed down a little bit, but it was off its peak about 3 months ago. But now the craze is slowing down a bit now, so people are becoming a little bit more savvy now. So it's good, it's all good. I am just currently working on my Moldavite trios, which is, for me, in my humble opinion, it has been my best friend. The 3 crystals have been my best friend over the 20 years of healing. So I always used to wear a Moldavite, a Tektite, black Tektite, and a Herkimer diamond. And I realized that these 3 are the kind of holy trinity of crystals, in my humble opinion, right now. So I set off on a journey to create them, and they've been the best-selling crystal I've ever had in the time that I've been doing this. But it takes time, and the amount of people who love this crystal, who have said such amazing things, I just turn around and say, well, actually, that's exactly what it did for me as a healer. So I understand, I get it. And it is a powerful trio. So if you could go to your local crystal store and asked for a genuine piece of Moldavite, a tektite, whether it's from Cambodia or wherever, but a nice black tektite. A nice black tektite. This one is on a piece of Libyan desert glass. This is one of my prototypes. They're selling like hotcakes and people are loving these at the moment. But tektite, and then a nice beautiful piece of Herkimer diamond, not from India because it's a different energy, but if you can get it from New York, the Ace of Mines, then you've got a beautiful trio. Put them together, even if they're separate pendants, put them together and see what happens. They're incredible. I'm just working on 100 right now, and I've been working on them for about 3 weeks, maybe another week and a half, and then they'll be ready on my website. But yeah, I'm gonna now finish these because they're just about ready, and put this bottle on the website and these beautiful Moldavites on my website too. Size has absolutely nothing to do with the power of Moldavite. You can take a beautiful 1 gram Moldavite like this and place it on your third eye or your heart, and you will equally get the power of that than the power of this 10-12 gram Moldavite. So remember guys, this, if you go to markbajerski.com and make any purchase of a crystal, you will be entered into the raffle for this amazing piece. I can feel my fingers and my eyebrows going crazy right now just holding that thing. Powerful stuff, man. Yeah, that's it. Have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this chat on Moldavite flush. And remember, if you're flushing, it means because your body is flushing it out. That's a positive thing.